Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's On the Road Again video. Now, today we are sadly coming to the end of our Norwegian Fjords cruise, and James and I sat down to share with you 9 things that we thought were really great about this cruise and 9 things that we weren't quite so happy about. Now, of course, we totally understand that these are personal preferences and you might have some really different views on this. So do watch the video and also make sure you leave a comment to share your experience of travelling on the P&O Iona and also your Norwegian Fjords cruise experience. So let's get started with today's vlog. Hi, we're James and Rob and this is our dog Oscar. We love travel in all its forms, so join us on our next adventure as we head out on the road again. So we are coming to the end of our 7-day Norwegian Fjords cruise, and we thought we would share our final thoughts of what we thought of the ship and the itinerary and everything else. So first of all, what did you think about the fjords themselves and the places we went?
Oh, stunning. Absolutely stunning. Well worth doing. Give you a taste of what Norway is like.
Yeah, that's one of the things we really like about cruises, is you get to go to places you probably wouldn't go to before, and then you can sort of see if you want to go back. And I think we've been so lucky with the weather this week that the places we've been to are absolutely stunning. There's no doubt about that Norway is absolutely beautiful. So if you're thinking about doing a fjords cruise, I definitely recommend it. But let's talk about some of the pros and the cons of this ship, so P&O Iona. So we've got our list here. So let's start with the pros. Do you want to do the first one?
We've got down as main dining room tables not too close, and 4 dining rooms make it not feel too crowded.
Yeah, so how that compares to other cruises like Celebrity we've been on the last cruise, where you've booked a table for 2 but you're almost sitting as close to us I am to James now at the next table, so you end up chatting to your neighbours whether you want to or not. Whereas I think here the main dining room layout is a little bit bigger, and I like the fact that they have 4 different dining rooms, so 2 of them are quite big and 2 of them are small, so you get to choose where you want to go. And on that note, another pro is the virtual queue, so just tell us a bit about that, James.
The virtual queue, that's actually a good concept where you can go onto the My Holiday, they call it an app, but it's actually web-based, so it's a web page, and you join a queue for a specific dining room, so you don't have to physically stand in line for the dining room specifically. So just join the queue and finish off what you're doing, whether it be getting ready in the cabin or having a drink, and then you get a pop-up telling you that your table's ready and you've got 15 minutes to get to the restaurant. So that is a really good idea.
Yeah, and it works really well, and that's really different to, for example, Celebrity, where they have 2 lines, people that have booked and people who haven't booked, and then you're just queuing for a long time. Even if you have booked, you're still queuing to get in. So this generally worked really well. On the first day we had breakfast in the main dining room, and it was a bit chaotic because the people who had booked were in the same line as the people who hadn't booked, but I think there must have been something going on, because every other time it's worked really well. So that's definitely a plus. And it's weird that P&O doesn't have an app, but they have a web page basically, and so you just put your details in. Once you're on board, you put your phone into airplane mode, you then log on to the P&O Wi-Fi, and then you can access this, and it's fairly straightforward. I think one bad thing or thing that could be better is that it would be good if you actually got a notification that your table was ready, so your phone buzzed or something, but what you need to do is just keep the page open and it shows you the countdown, and then, like James says, it gives you a pop-up when your table's ready. But if you happen to put your phone away and forget about it, you're going to miss that pop-up. But anyway, the idea of that virtual queue is a really good one. So the next pro about this ship is that obviously it's a new ship, so talk to us a bit about the newness and the decor.
Well, it's relatively new. It's a few years old now, but definitely has a modern feel to it. It's an LNG ship, so liquid natural gas, so it's a lot greener for the environment. Lots of windows, lots of outside space. It has a clean, modern feel.
Yeah, then the decor's fairly neutral, isn't it? Sort of light woods and light colours, so completely inoffensive. But it's nice to be on a new ship that's not sort of full of teak and orange carpets like some of the older ships are, or floral carpets. So on that note, the one thing that we really like about the ship is the cabin is really nice. So we're recording this in our cabin now. We're in cabin 14104, which is a forward-facing cabin right underneath the bridge. So obviously on deck 14. And that's meant, as you'd have seen if you followed this series, that we've had amazing views of going in and out the fjords. But also because we're at the front of the ship, it's been a bit bumpier. But the design of this room is nice. It's big, probably the biggest cabin that we've had. And the bathroom is really nice with a glass shower, so you've got the wet curtain on you, and there's plenty of room in there, and there's lots of storage as well, which has been really good, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So the next thing on our list is that there is lots of outside space to sit on.
Yes, lots of space. Wherever you go on the ship, you're guaranteed to find a seat somewhere or a sun lounger. It's designed quite well. You've got the promenade deck on deck 8, which has loads of seats around it. Then you've got the top decks as well. I think it's deck 17 with lots of sun loungers, and also 18 and 19. There's little spots where you can always find somewhere to get away from the madding crowd.
Yeah, so that's what's nice. I mean, this ship has been sailing at capacity, and you've seen, we've done a ship tour today on our last sea day where it's been busy, and you've sort of seen what that's like. But there's always a place you can find to sit away from everybody. So whether that be in one of the lounges or outside, there's plenty of space. This ship definitely wants to bring the outside in with the big glass atrium and, wraparound decks and just many, many places that you can sit and enjoy the great weather that we've been fortunate to have this week. So on that note, the next point we want to talk about is that this ship has been sailing at capacity, and that capacity is 5,000 something rather, isn't it?
5,700?
Yeah, and it's never really felt that busy, has it?
No, not all the time. There's a couple of times where it has, but the majority of the time it moves quite easily. There's loads of space. You can always find somewhere quiet to get lost in and get away from people if need be. So it's done really well in how they manage all the different spaces and crowds.
Yeah, and if you do things a little bit against the crowd, then you're never going to feel like you're queuing too long. So, for example, if you don't try and, if you get off the ship first, or you might well be queuing with a lot of people, but if you just leave it a bit, if you avoid the rush hour times for breakfast, you're going to be absolutely fine. So they definitely sort of manage that well, and there's an awful lot of space on this ship given the size of it as well. The next thing we wanted to talk about was a couple of the lounges that we liked. So those were
the Crow's Nest and Anderson's. They were really nice spaces. Crow's Nest is at the top on deck 16, next to the Epicurean. Lovely space, dark interior. The tables had labradorite inlays, which were really nice. So you get this shimmer of different colour across the table. Lovely views out to the sea. Nice space to disappear on a sea day and just watch or even a sail away. Nice place to just go for a drink pre-dinner. And Anderson's, that was a nice, almost Scandi feel to it. I can't remember what deck that was.
Something like that. Yeah, it's sort of got a library feel to it, isn't it? So it's a really nice place to just chill out, to play board games, to go before dinner, after dinner, or whatever. But we've never found that to be really busy. And it's a really nice. So I think most of the spaces here are pretty nice, but those are the two lounges that we liked the most. The next thing on our list was that they have some pretty nice shops here, and there's no sell like some of the American cruise lines, for example, Celebrity or Royal Caribbean that we've been on, or Norwegian. There's pressure for the team to constantly be upselling new stuff, whether it be stuff from the shops or drinks packages or dining packages. They're constantly selling, and I think because this is a British ship with a British clientele, they're much more laid back about that. And the shops are more like the kind of shops you would find on land, so they're not selling loads of tat. Of course there is tat if you want that, but there's things that are more useful, like the Molten Brown that we bought, that's pretty much the same price as on land, so you're kind of not being screwed because they've got a community where you've got no choice but to buy it from them or not buy it at all. So that's been really nice. And one of the other points that James made was about the ship's, what's the LNG stuff, liquid
natural gas.
Yeah, so it's much more green than a lot of the ships, and you're probably aware that in 2025 Norway's banning all cruise ships that are not green and not on LNG, so the Iona and the Avia and any other new cruise ships will be able to continue sailing to the fjords, but other older ships won't be because they're in much less green
Oh, they
fuel.
use diesel.
Yeah. And the last point that we wanted to make, the last positive, is that the cost of drinks and the cost of the food where you pay an extra isn't exorbitant. And so, it's very, very reasonable. If you want to buy a drink, if you don't have a drinks package, then you're going to pay the same prices that you pretty much would on land in a pub or a bar, and the same with food. And that's actually meant that we haven't spent anything on this cruise. We didn't have a drinks package. We had £330 cruise credit, and as of today, the last day, we've got about £30 left, which will get us through drinks tonight. So we've done really well on that. Now, we've eaten almost every night in a upsell restaurant, a specialty restaurant, and only in the main dining room once. And so there's the extra costs. Some of them we booked in advance, you pay in advance, but then there's ones where you pay extra costs per dish, and they weren't that expensive. So ironically, I think the most expensive restaurant we've eaten in is going to work out to be the Keeling Cow, and that definitely wasn't the best meal that we've had. I think Sindhu last night was the best meal, but it's actually worked out cheaper than Keeling Cow. It's definitely worth booking your restaurants in advance before you get on the ship, that 2-week window, because you're going to pay less. So for example, you book in the Epicurean beforehand, you pay £24 ahead, and that's a fixed price for the meal. But if you booked it on the ship, A, there's a good chance there won't be any availability, and B, you're paying, I think, £30 ahead instead. And then like Sindhu last night, I think we paid a deposit of £20 each, but then we got 20% off of the rest of the items that we paid beyond the £20 because we booked it in advance, so we were saving another 20% there. So anything else to add to that?
No, pretty much.
Okay, so let's move on to the cons. So what are the things that we don't like about the cruise? So the first one is the biggest one, really. Do you want to just talk about that?
We found the food kind of lacked a bit of substance to it. It just felt like style over substance. Even in the specialty restaurants, it just didn't have that wow factor. Maybe we're spoiled coming from Celebrity, and Celebrity are known for their food. We just didn't feel that little added extra to it.
Yeah, I think the food looks really nice, the menus and the actual presentation of the food looks really good, but was slightly disappointing. So for example, in Epicurean, the first night, I had the ceviche fish starter, and it was sort of swimming in water, so it didn't live up to the expectations. So, and then another example, and I'd highly recommend don't do this, is that in the beach house we ordered the hanging s'mores sort of marshmallows with the chocolate fondue and then various bits and pieces, and that was not good at all. The strawberries were clearly frozen and they were just slushy. The marshmallows that looked lovely golden toasted were freezing cold, so they'd clearly been frozen or something. It just wasn't good, and I wouldn't recommend that. So I think the food overall has been a little bit disappointing. We are foodies and not really food snobs, but just like good food, and it hasn't been great. Sindhu has been the best food that we had. Well, we're going back to the Epicurean tonight, so we'll see what we feel after that. The main dining room was okay, but the portion sizes are really small, which is saying a lot because I'm not a big eater, but even for me, they weren't very big. The buffet was okay, wasn't it? But probably not as much choice as other cruise lines. Now we're making a comparison to cruise lines sort of pre-pandemic, and so that might not be a fair comparison because we don't know what the other cruise lines are like now post-pandemic. But that was a big one for us, that the food wasn't as good as we had hoped. The second thing is coffee. So about that, James.
Well, coffee's not good. The standard coffee you get at breakfast, just brown water pretty much, not strong enough. We do like our coffee. We need it to wake up in the mornings. So we've been going to Costa to get coffee, and I've been asking for an extra shot in there. Otherwise, it just doesn't seem to have the oomph to get you going on that.
Yeah, I think we've obviously in your room you've got a kettle with some instant coffee and some UHT milk, which is going to be what you expect it to be. And then the coffee at breakfast has not been good, and so Starbucks, Costa is where you need to go. But sometimes the queue has been massive, although you can get Costa coffee from other places, not just in the main atrium. So, for example, we just had a coffee down at the Ripples Gelato Bar, and it's the same coffee there, so that's not bad. But otherwise, the coffee on this ship hasn't been great, and we like a decent cup of coffee. The next thing on our list is about the staff. I want to be careful because the staff just look really stressed and not very happy, and obviously you don't know their backstory in terms of how hard they're working, so I want to be kind here, but there definitely isn't really service with a smile. I would say the majority of the time they're very functional at getting you to your seat or taking your orders, very quick and efficient, but not very chatty and not very smiley, and it's probably because they're really stressed or really exhausted, but that's something we've really noticed compared to other cruise lines, right?
I'm just thinking they haven't got enough staff, so they're probably doubling up on the amount of work they have to do.
Yeah. So next negative on our list is, well, lots of queues and things book out quickly. I'm just not sure this system of, waking up at midnight 2 weeks before to book everything is a good system, because it's kind of not fair on everyone who doesn't necessarily have internet access or doesn't know that they should do that. So once you're on board, then you want to try, the minute you get on board or the minute you get the Wi-Fi from the ship, you want to try and book those restaurants that you can't book in advance, like Keel and Cow and Olive Grove and all that stuff. But again, it books out really quickly, and so you off, if you're not fast enough, you're not going to get the places that you want to eat in. And then the theatre, well, they've had some problem on this cruise with their booking system, because the night we were due to go to the theatre, the queue went literally round the ship, and they were saying something that everybody who was booked in 2 nights later had been told that it was that night, so there was double the amount of people, and it was just pandemonium. And we just thought, well, there's no way we are queuing, we're not on holiday to queue for half an hour to then suddenly find we can't get in even though we booked it. So we are booked into theatre tonight. We'll see if we eat quick enough whether we can get in there. Otherwise, we haven't seen anything except for up in the Sky Dome that you would have seen on an earlier video. Next point is kind of an opposite of what we said earlier, is a con, which is the My Holiday Bookings app, which isn't an app, it's a website. So do you want to just talk about that?
Ropey and didn't show all the bookings we made, so we made a few bookings offline, and then when we got on the ship and had a look at our calendar, they were missing, so we didn't know what was booked. Luckily we had them written down, so we knew we had something booked, but we had to go to guest services to double check with them that we did have bookings made for that.
Yeah, and then one night we both had 2 bookings for the same place at different times, so that was weird because we didn't think we'd done that. So I don't know why that didn't work, but where you go into My Calendar and it shows you everything you've booked, restaurants and shows and stuff, well, it didn't show everything that we'd booked, and the staff didn't know why, so we just had to make sure we'd written it down manually by hand. So the next point, we've kind of talked about this already, that as James said, there's just not enough staff on the ship. I think that's why everyone looks stressed and overworked.
An example, we waited about 40 minutes for a coffee at Costa. They were running around. You could tell they were really busy, and they did nothing against them at all because they were working really hard. I just think they needed probably an extra member of staff to help basically distribute the craziness that was there.
Yeah, it felt like, especially the coffee in the central atrium, isn't big enough for the amount of people that were ordering. So there's sort of, you can sit down and have table services is what we did, or you can queue up to take a takeaway. But we ordered fairly quickly when we sat down, but it took 40 minutes and kind of you lost the desire that you wanted to have a coffee. This was after we got back from an excursion. We thought we'd have a drink to warm ourselves up, but it took forever to arrive, so that wasn't great. I think the final point for us, and we totally acknowledge this is personal preference, so it may not be the case for you, is that the ship just felt a little bit too big for us. This is a big ship with 5,700 people on, but it felt a little bit big, right?
A little bit, really big. I think for us, I'd say maximum 3,000, 3,500 people will be our upper limit. I just think there's too many people, too many queues, um, walking from one end to the other or up and down decks. Yeah, it is a lot. I think we've learnt. I think you have to test out the water and just to see what suits you. And yeah, we realised that we're not big ship people. We prefer the smaller style ship, maximum of a medium size, and what you classify medium these days. So yeah,
Yeah, I feel like the ship is lovely, but it feels a little bit soulless. I can understand why a lot of ships have that central atrium area, which is the real sort of focal point. This ship doesn't really have that. It has beautiful windows looking out, but it just feels a bit disparate and a bit soulless for us. Some people will love it. I totally get that. So do leave a comment and let us know what you think. If you've been on Iona or another big cruise ship, what's your views on that? Now let's just wrap this up by talking a little bit about disembarkation. So if you are going to have your luggage taken for you, then bizarrely you need to leave it outside your cabin by 2 o'clock the day before. So today is Friday.
afternoon.
Yeah, so 2 o'clock afternoon or evening. So that means you've got to have packed and you've got to have thought about the clothes that you still need and putting it in your hand baggage by 2 o'clock the day before. And that is bizarre because on other ships it's like 2 o'clock at night, not 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But anyway, if you're doing that, you put your luggage outside your door. It will be taken from you. You get given a disembarkation leaflet like this, and ours says that we would have to go to the casino at between 9:30 and 9:40 tomorrow to check out, but we've actually decided we're just going to do self-checkout, which means we can leave all our luggage with us, and then we have to be off the ship by 8:30. So you can imagine on the day of disembarkation it's going to be crazy trying to get in a lift, and of course we'll need to get in a lift with our luggage. So a tip here, let's hope this works tomorrow, is that if you go up rather than down, you're going to likely get in a lift when it's empty, and then if you go down from there then you'll obviously be in the lift. So we're on deck 14, we'll get the lift up to deck 15. Hopefully on its way up it will be empty, because on the way down it'll be full of people, and that means hopefully we will be able to get off. I'll let you know how that works. So anyway, if you're doing your self-disembarkation, you have to be off between 8 and 8:30, so earlier, but that's fine by us because we gain an hour tomorrow because the clocks change as we go back into UK time. So we'll get an extra hour, so it won't feel too early. If you have the crew take your luggage, they'll take it off, you'll disembark in your area, and then apparently it's laid out by deck, so it shouldn't be too difficult to get your luggage. Now, embarking on the ship was really, really quick, so I'm assuming that disembarkation will be really quick as well. So any final thoughts on this cruise, James?
The fjords are beautiful, definitely worth doing. We've gone through them. The ship's too big for me. Food wasn't the best, which is one of the reasons why we book cruises. So we get culinary delights. But otherwise, no, it's been lovely. Weather's been amazing. Also, one thing I learned is not be at the front of the ship. Don't book a cabin forward of the ship because you will feel the movement. So if you're prone to seasickness, which I've discovered I do get woozy, book middle of the ship, middle cabins, so at least it's more stable.
Yeah.
But not much.
Yeah, I think the fjords have been lovely. We always cruise because of the destination, so we've really enjoyed it. Norway is so beautiful. We've been so blessed with the weather that's been really lovely. In fact, it looks like we're going back with a tan, which is amazing. And you know, we covered the rest of it, so I hope you found that useful. Do make sure you've hit the subscribe button and the like button, and do leave us a comment to let us know what you think of the P&O Iona. And other than that, we will see you next week when we head out on the road again.
Ain't worried if I'm up by the lakeside. No, I don't really care what we do, 'cause everything just falls by the wayside when I take time with you. And my crazy phone up wanting to chase lights. No, I just want a table for two.